Even when you take courses, when you go to university, you take courses. If you are going to study to become an accountant, lawyers, engineers, whatnot, okay, they are a specific profession. So let's use an example as an accountant. I come from an accounting background. So what they do is that they get a qualification accountant. So they join an organization. They're thinking about, I do the job of an accountant. Okay, now that's fine because you're skilled, you're trained in that area. So you become an accountant. Doing the word accountant doesn't mean you have to think like as an accountant. The working part is what you do. The thinking is that you're always thinking about the business. Okay, like example, when I say you think about the business, is when you're working in an organization, you try to always think the whole organization as your business. Then you will start to do the things that helps the business rather than just do the part which you are trained to do.
Understand.
If you are a plumber, you are not only looking at if you have a water leakage and you go and solve the problem, okay? But along the way, if you find there are other problems that the client is facing, you will not keep quiet about it.
Before we begin the podcast, have you gotten your free ebook? It's called the Build a Six-Figure Portfolio Guidebook. Now, inside it, we share with you the tips and tricks to bring your stock investing skills to the next level. The best part, it's only 10 pages long and it's totally free. Whether you're on Spotify or YouTube, the link to download is in the description, or you can go to www.firl.co/FREE or www.firl.co/free. Hello everyone, welcome back to the FIRL podcast, best place for long-term stock investors. If you're tuning in because you want to listen and know about stock investing, I have to disappoint you today. But no worries, you will not be disappointed by the podcast regardless, because we are going to talk about taking charge of your career. So today with us, we have two very interesting gentlemen. One we know very well, one we have no clue who he is.
Yeah.
And that's why we are, he's on the podcast, right? And we're actually here going to be talking about their book, the new book, right? It's one of the shortest book I've read, but clearly one of the most impactful one. And it's called Take Charge, A Practical Guide to Designing Your Career by Mr. Meng Chai, which is a gentleman sitting in front of me. And of course, the one joining us all the way from Houston through Zoom.
Dallas.
Dallas, sorry. Saqib Sheikh. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think just to start off, right, we usually like to introduce our guests, but we want both of you to introduce yourself. So who are you and what do you do? Maybe we can start with Saqib first.
Sure. And thank you both for having us on the podcast. It's a pleasure, and we hope to make it a productive conversation. So my name is Saqib Sheikh. I'm not based in Dallas. I'm just here gallivanting across the states, and I happen to be staying with a friend at the moment. But as you could tell by my accent, I do come from thereabouts in the States. I'm Pakistani American. But for the last 10 years, I've been based in Malaysia. And I have a few different hats that I think I carry. One is in the sort of social impact space. I've been very active in the area of urban sustainability, in the area of refugee empowerment, and that has been a sort of passion of mine in the last 5 to 6 years. Along with that, I'm a certified coach, and I'm an educator as well. And it's specifically those last two hats that sort of lend themselves towards this book. And, I'll be sharing more about, I guess, myself or my own journey as we move along. But at the core of a lot of what I do is writing. Writing has been a passion. I don't necessarily consider it a job. It's more of my passion. And it's something that I think I'm very happy that the book that you've been holding in your hands has sort of been the first real sort of milestone project from me in my writing career. And great to be on.
How's your Lars and your Bars since you've been in Malaysia for so long? Do you?
Strangely enough, yeah, the laws slip in. Even though I've been back to the States, you would think that they would have been filtered out of my lingo, but no. And especially, I've noticed in terms of my lexicon, using can as a
that's right.
single one-word sentence is something that definitely has been adopted from me.
It's efficient, right? It's really efficient, right?
It is, and strangely enough, it's a universal communication. So wherever I go now, when I talk to people in the States and I say "can," they immediately understand it. But
it's weird to them, right?
That short adoption, even in the States, where there tends to be an emphasis on utility in language, but I think Malaysians take it to another level.
Yeah, that's true.
Can lah.
Yeah. So I think I'll go into why did you both decide to work on this book a bit later on. But Meng Chai, maybe share with us,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm actively retired this year. Okay, and I choose so because I hit my 60th year this year, and I'm currently seated on the 2 listed board in Malaysia as an independent director, a non-executive director. And I've been a trainer or facilitator, workshop facilitator for a US-based HR consulting firm for the past more than 10 years. And I'm also internationally certified ICF certified coach as well. What I do in my so-called actively retired time, I do some executive coaching. I actually coach organization and business on leadership matters, on succession planning, and on a regular basis. Sometimes I meet friends and all that. They want advice on careers and all that. I give coaching as well.
Pro bono?
Yeah, I do that.
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends.
Yes. I mean, look, they are friends, if they need advice anytime. And I've been mentor to friends as well, children.
Yeah.
And all that.
So some context, Meng Chai is also kind of like a mentor to both MJ and myself.
Yeah. In fact, I think before we started FIRL, I think a big push came from Meng Chai. Right, I would say.
We went for breakfast.
Yeah.
We ended up at dinner. So that's how long the conversation lasted, Saqib. Just for some context,
You know how talkative I can be, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
So I guess now we go to the story of how did both of you all decide to combine.
How do you guys cross paths
your
maybe
mind?
first?
Yeah, how do you guys come together and eventually decide to write the book?
Let me take a go at that. And the idea about writing this book came about 6 years ago.
Okay.
And I was with a friend, and we meet quite regularly, and we regularly share ideas about management, leadership, and various topics. And as I shared more, and then I think he came up with the idea, say, hey, you got so much ideas, why don't you come up with a book? And I start putting down points. But over the 6 years, I struggled many times trying to come up with books. I just can't put
words to ideas.
Thoughts to words. And make it in a way that's readable. So I just couldn't do that. And he encouraged me. He says, okay, why don't we do it this way? You write every week, we meet up. Okay, you write a chapter, I write a chapter. Okay, so we can exchange the chapters. So in a way to induce me, encourage me to write. He finished writing his own book. Okay, I didn't get anywhere. Okay, he's really a good friend, and I always call him a coach because he's also we help each other. So he called me a coach, I call him a coach. And somewhere this year, beginning of this year, because Saqib and I we are peer coaches, sitting in the same forum. And Saqib writes very well. And I saw, and I said, hey, Saqib, maybe we can work on something, you can write something I have in mind. And then he very quickly came to the idea, say, hey, what do you have in mind? So that's how we got together and have a chat over it.
I see. Was it done, a lot of these chats done virtually, or was it a face-to-face thing between both of you? I mean, during COVID.
Yeah, it was beginning of this year, so it was during the COVID time. So almost everything I think happens over the Zoom.
Wow.
Right. Meng Chai and I, we first met towards the end of 2020, I believe.
Yeah.
That's when we first met. And it's only after that where I started getting more serious in terms of article writing. And I used to write at the beginning of the year several articles related to personal self-development, some of my coaching focuses. And I think primarily I would be sharing that with the coaching community and then my extended networks. And I think Meng Chai came across some of these articles and he got an idea of my sort of style and flair to my writing. And I think he sort of reached out because he had already planted this seed in the coaching community that he wants to do a book. That's one of his milestone activities that he wants to get accomplished. And he approached me regarding that. And it was a bit of a conversation. It wasn't as easy as us just saying, okay, let's write a book. And then next week we start writing. Yeah. There took a series of conversations to actually get to the actual drafting process. And those conversations were very important in hindsight because we wanted the book to be a product of, both of our collective thinking and our own ideas, as well as, a sort of cross-fertilization of, ideas as well. So that process was very much learning as we go. Yeah. And I think it was something, at least it was very beneficial for me. I hope for Meng Chai as well.
Yes.
So I know we have friends who, and before I get into the content of the book, which is really going to be the fun part of the discussion, right? But I know I have a couple of friends who wrote books, and what they intended, the process to be is very different from what it actually was. So I want to ask both of you, right? Were there any surprises once you started writing a book and finishing the book that you did not foresee?
Caught you off guard, in a way.
But for me personally, it's not about caught off guard. I liked a lot of contribution from Saqib in the sense that the idea I had was, to me, it was a very practical idea. Right. Through my experience, and I have in mind the reasons why I want to put forth some of the ideas. Saqib was very good in the sense that he thought in terms of the audience, how it comes across to the audience, how he organized ideas, and then how he challenged them. And, because we are from different so-called, in terms of age, I'm always older. So he could provide some pushback in some of the ideas and give a better perspective, in some of the ideas that is coming across.
I see.
Yeah. For you, Saqib?
I think that, as Meng Chai will probably mention later, the process of publishing a book, there are several steps. It's not just about drafting the book itself. Yeah. It's also about, the publishing process. And I think there's several steps you have to take, especially if you're deciding to self-publish versus, publish through a regular publisher. It's a learning process. Yeah. In terms of the writing itself, I think that I didn't go into it with many expectations. I didn't, because it's also a first time for me. I think that what was important for me is that it should be an end product that people find valuable. And I think one thing that Meng Chai and I had came to a common vision on is that we want the piece of work. It's not about, trying to push a bestseller. It's about trying to promote certain ideas that we feel are sort of out of place in the workforce at the moment. And I think that's what resonated with me. But as Meng Chai mentioned, he came with a sort of list of a lot of his different ideas and unconventional wisdom and nuggets that he had learned through his own career process. So the main challenge was to find a way to structure it so that it can actually deliver maximum impact for a reader. And that was the series of conversations that we had in the beginning was focused mainly on that. Like, what would be the type of structure or the vehicle through which we can deliver these ideas? I mean, what would be the most effective way to do that? And it was a lot of back and forth. And I would say this, that, a lot of people, when they write their first book, it can be a solo journey, which can be somewhat more daunting. In our case, we decided very early on to do it as a co-authorship. So as a co-authorship, we wanted it to be a product of both of our imaginations, both of our creative impulses as well. So that it was very important for Meng Chai and I to, on a personal level, to become familiar with each other, to meet. We met on a few occasions, just to even just understand a bit more about the psychology of the other person and where the other person is coming from, and to develop a bit of sort of professional chemistry of working together before we could actually even get to the drafting process. And I think that's very important when it comes to co-authoring, is that there's some level of mutual trust and camaraderie between the co-authors. Otherwise, it can be a much more difficult process than it turned out to be. I think the process of creating the book was, as much as it was a project of hard work, it was also enjoyable, and at least for me, it was a learning process as well.
Right.
It's great to hear, man.
Just another sharing, as I at that time, I was also, thinking about getting somebody to write for me. And I approached this person. She has been an ex-reporter before, and she was not free, so she couldn't write for me. And she recommended some other people to write. And I actually checked them out as a ghostwriters and all that. And anyway, when I eventually told her that I finished the book, then we talk about it. The first comment, the first remark she made to me was, You mean you guys survived the whole conversation? And then from her experience, they say it's actually not easy to have two person writing the book, and her experience will tell her that it's there's a lot of this tension in the conversation and all that. I was like, okay, that didn't happen to us, but he actually make the comment and say, you mean you guys survived that? I say, yeah, actually. It was so nothing.
There was no knife stabbing and fork stabbing, all this kind of thing between both.
That's insight to me. Right? So now let's get into the book, right? So what I like to do is to read maybe an excerpt in your book, and I like to find out why it's in there, right? So on page 23, right? Design your career like a game.
Yeah.
So career design need not be some intricate process that requires 5-dimensional thinking and planning for every single conceivable contingency. Instead, it may be best to consider your career as a single-player game. In this game, you face no competitor, and your sole aim is to achieve your targets. Really? Career is like a game?
Yeah. Exactly. Perhaps many don't think it like a game, but my thought is that people should think it like a game.
Right.
Now, why? If you look at any sports, okay, for the sports to be successful, generally there's a lot of planning.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of practice, there's a lot of planning, and the planning actually involve, like example, if you go to a top level competitive sport, you talk about diet, okay, you talk about exercise, you talk about discipline, you talk about strategy. Especially if you have a game that involves an opponent, you will study the way how it's played. You have a long-term strategy. Example, if you want to talk about Olympic, all right, how do you want to qualify for Olympic? Then you go to regionals, then you go to states, and you go to nationals, and you go to region. You go to
state
and all that. You know, so there's a lot of planning and there's a lot of strategy involved. And I'm saying that why can't you do it in Korea? And I find that when people think about career, it's a lot of time, it's almost like a accident. If you meet a good boss, oh, I'm lucky. If you go in a good right company, oh, I lucky. Or you got right colleague, right environment. Or if not, then you say, oh, my colleague is bad or my boss is bad and all. But it's almost like everything is happening by chance. And I'm saying it shouldn't be that way. If you think like a game, there's no chance. You actually create your own luck and chance. Okay, and it can be done.
And I think when you design the career, rather than leaving it to chance, you actually have option 1, 2, and 3 in a way.
Yeah.
Is that along the line?
And not only that, and you have you create multiple options, obviously, but when you plan something, okay, part of the planning is that you will not only plan for success, you also plan for potential failures, and you also plan for contingency.
Okay.
Okay, and you develop all that. If this is not happen, what's the next course of action? Okay, and you should, because in a game, you notice that most games also have time limitation. All right, like in the game is a soccer. Okay, you got 90 minutes. Okay, when you're down when you're down in points, what do you do? All right, so you have to fix. All right, and in Korea it's the same thing. If you land with a company that is not right and all that, what do? You don't sit around and just wait it out, and wait for something good to happen and wait for something to come. No, because you are on the clock. Okay, if you are age 31, okay, next year is going to be 32. You're not going to go back to 31.
Correct.
Okay, so everything is working against you, and your life is not stopping at the same time. This year you're single, and next year you may get married, and then you got to have children and all that. You don't turn back the clock. So every time something happens to your life, and there's a certain dynamism involved, and your career, there will be some impact on your career as well. So, and all this has to be factored in.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't turn back the clock; you just move with the clock.
So true. And maybe I want to get Saqib's thought, because both of you are coaches.
Yeah.
And with this principle and you practicing your coaching and executive coaching, based on a rough feel or rough numbers, right? How many people that you meet in your coaching and your training in the corporate sector actually design their careers? 5%, 10%, 20%, or 80%? Surprise us.
I did.
Well,
carry on.
I think it's hard to get an exact number, but I would say it likely is just a fraction of the people you meet. Now, I've said before to Meng Chai that I think most people, rather than design their careers, prefer to manage their careers. And yeah, so the idea of managing your career is just essentially put things on a bit of autopilot, where you just have to tweak here and there. You have to have a sort of supervisory role of your career, but essentially it's already running. Whereas design is a very sort of intentional process and a very proactive process. So when we say design, what I try and think of is how many people have a very sort of proactive and sort of self-empowered approach to the way they look at their career, where a lot of the activity and development is being done based on their own impulse rather than, coming from a company or coming from some reaction to a market force. So, for example, if you feel that you need to be trained in a certain skill in order to be competitive in the job force, now that can come from your own impulse. That can come from your own research and your own desire to just remain at a level that's competitive. Or it could come from, your company mandating that you have to do a certain training. It can come from the fact that you've tried to interview at a number of places and then you found out that you're not suitable because you lack a certain skill. So in one case, it's a very sort of proactive approach. The other is it's an approach that's sort of enforced upon you. And in my experience, there are very few people who take a sort of proactive approach. Generally speaking, as a human tendency, we want to take an approach where things are sort of easier for us.
Understand.
And the problem with that is that for a big chunk of the workforce, by the time they reach a sort of mid-career level, that approach won't pay the dividends that they want, and a lot of people end up being disaffected and want to look towards other options. And that's somewhat of our thinking behind the book is catered towards those individuals who
Understand.
have sort of their career hasn't gone to their expectations, primarily because they took an approach that unfortunately put a lot of the responsibility on others rather than themselves.
Great point. And because the reason why I ask is because I think it's not natural for the workforce to actually design this, and I wanted to understand the behaviors and the thinking of what's stopping most individuals from coming into this. What was the mindset? Is it because they lack the knowledge or the awareness that you can actually design it, or was it more of the system is overpowering that I just go with the flow? I mean, what is the thought process? I mean, from your both experiences as coaches, and also writing the book and designing your careers, you see.
I would link back to that one as a principle, to link back to the principle one in the book, where I talk about a career as a business.
Which is the good segue to the next part, the next question actually.
And the reason I say that is because if you're thinking about the business, most time, whether you like it or not, you start taking ownership of it. So if you are a plumber, you figure out all the things you need to do. Like example, you need to get clients. You need to think about how much you charge. You need to think about what skills you have in order to solve the problems of the client.
Tools you need to buy.
Tools you need to buy. You don't wait for the client to tell you what to do, how to do, and when to do. You just don't do all that. But the moment you employee mindset is like, you tell me what I should do.
Where's the SOP?
When I should go to go for training. Even you pay for the training, they don't even go for the training. Example, when I should improve myself, or if at all the company will say, okay, you deserve so much, or this is your promotion, and all. It's like everything they surrender to the company, all because they are thinking as an employee. But the moment you think as a business owner, and take charge of your own career, and all the things that you just talk about, and think like a sports already, because you take ownership. You want to go ahead, you take control of the things. So it starts from there.
Right. Just to tail off Meng Chai's point. So I do think that, growing up, we have a sort of blueprint that society gives us.
Yes.
Which tells us, that, okay, after you complete your education, you get a job, you work to get a promotion, eventually you make your way up a certain corporate ladder, etc. And, hopefully you get the golden watch before you retire. I mean, it's a very sort of standard template. And a lot of that template, I think, is based off a sort of a different era where you had people who could work for companies for 20, 30 years, almost in perpetuity. Right, and that would be the expectation, and the idea then was that your career is sort of set within the company. So you're just thinking in terms of that ladder that you need to just progress along, and it's understandable that in those type of situations, a lot of the onus is on career development will be based just in that company. But what we find is that in especially in the modern workforce, that because of many economic factors, but also because of just the mobility and the options available to people, is that it's a lot more flexible now. And that those people who are self-starters, those people who are internally motivated, tend to be much more dynamic and much more upward mobilized than the rest of the workforce. So that social blueprint, unfortunately, lacks a lot of the validity now, and it's important for us to address that, I think, and to tell people that they have to think in terms of their own internal drivers towards their own career development. I think that's the sort of idea behind the principle of your career is your business. And this principle is something that Meng Chai and I actually discussed probably more than any other principle, I believe, because to sort of really understand it, for me, as when I was writing, to understand it from an outsider perspective, right? Because the first connotation you get from the word business, if you're somebody who's not a business person is that, okay, it's about profit loss and, balance sheets, these type of things, right? So you can lose a lot of people just in thinking of that principle in those terms. But I think what we mean by saying your career is your business is that with a business, the onus is on you, right? And a lot of the determinants of success will be based on the amount of input that you put. And that's the idea behind saying that your career is your business. So thinking of it in those terms, I think, can help crystallize for people what they need to do.
Yeah, actually, I would love to quote a book that I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with, The Startup of You by Reid Hoffman.
I'm not very sure.
He's Reid Hoffman's the founder of LinkedIn, and the concepts that you guys espouse about you thinking of yourself as a business was actually quite well mentioned in that book as well. Because if you think of yourself as a startup company, you have to figure out things on your own. You have to figure out how to network. You have to figure out the value, how to put yourself valuable to be on the table, and all those things. And I think that it's great that you guys bring it into that concept, because a lot of people just take the end value of their salary. But in terms of thinking of it as, let's just say, if you're a professional and you want to get paid higher man hours, does that thinking process actually happen? Because, if you're a doctor, you're just a normal GP, how you get paid higher? Think of being a specialist. Or as an engineer, right? If you get your professional engineering certification, then you get paid higher because you sign out drawings and things like that. And I think people just go with the flow, what they see in the seniors doing, but really to design it as a business, I think that's somewhat lacking. And I think, Saqib, you pointed a very good point about when you talk from a concept or an angle of a P&L, right? A lot of people just like,
it's very hard for people to imagine, unless they're already business owners themselves, right? But those are not the people you're talking to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You think about the conditioning.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say, for instance, in school, even when you take courses, when you go to university, you take courses. If you want to study to become an accountant, lawyers, engineers, whatnot, okay, they are a specific profession.
Yeah.
So let's use an example as an accountant. I come from an accounting background. So what they do is that they get a qualification accountant. So they join an organization. They're thinking about, I do the job of an accountant. Okay, now that's fine because you're skilled, you're trained in that area. So
Correct.
You become an accountant. Doing the word accountant doesn't mean you have to think like as an accountant. The working part is what you do. The thinking is that you're always thinking about the business. Okay, like example, when I say you think about the business, is when you're working in an organization, you try to always think the whole organization as your business. Then you will start to do the things that helps the business rather than just do the part which you are trained to do.
Understand.
If you are a plumber, you are not only looking at if you have a water leakage and you go and solve the problem, okay? But along the way, if you find there are other problems that the client is facing, you will not keep quiet about it.
Yeah. It's like the reason why the water is leaking is because your pump is overpressurized or something that is causing the whole, you will try to solve the pump problem as well, is it?
I was sharing, during my book launch, I hired this plumber because my pipe burst, okay, my water tank burst, and then I was overseas and he came and fixed the pipe and all that. And remotely, we worked with each other and said, okay, you got the thing fixed. They said, yeah, the tank was sitting in the roof, okay? So he got the thing fixed. They said, by the way, I'm already in the roof. Can I take a look at the roof to see whether there's any leakage or not? If there is, I can help you repair it because I'm already on the roof.
Yeah.
And he did that. He said, I took a look at the roof and then there's some cracks and all that. Do you want me to go and repair it? I said, sure. By all means, you're already up there and get it done. I'm happily paid him. So now he got my problem solved, okay, and which I'm happily paid. And he
got extra income.
He got extra income. And all because he's not just thinking as a plumber. He was up there, he repairs the roof as well. Okay.
Yeah.
And because he took ownership of his business.
That's right.
All right.
Fantastic.
So I know one word both of you all mentioned quite a bit in the book is this thing called employee mindset, right? And John and I, we use this term a lot when we have discussions and all that. And almost to a point that it's becoming a little bit derogatory. So
apologies for that, but
it's not a very good thing. But I just want to get both of your thoughts, right? Maybe starting with Saqib. What is the employee mindset? And then as an extension, how do you jump out of it? See, again, it's a derogatory term, right? How do you get out of it and things like that? So Saqib.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't really intended to be framed in a negative sense, but it can be perceived that way. I can understand. The idea of the employee mindset is that you, as sort of a professional, approaching your career in the sense where you have a sort of subordinate position in your own sort of development. So the idea of an employee viewing themselves as an employee sees themselves as sort of a lesser person in a transaction with the employer, right? So the employee mindset relates to somebody who feels that the driving force behind their career development or their the monetary compensation, etc., comes from the at the behest of the employer. So we use the term employee mindset to just relate to the fact that somebody feels that they're on the lesser end of a work transaction. Now, you could be an employee working for an organization, and the terms of which you're working for are completely suitable and very beneficial for you. I mean, we wouldn't say that person is necessarily suffering from an employee mindset. Our term is used mainly for people who feel they're at a subordinate position in relation to their exchange or their transaction with the employer. That's the idea. Meng Chai, if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah. The word derogatory is because you're thinking from the employee's perspective. Okay, that's the term they use because they are looking down on their employees. And they're this employee mindset.
Yeah.
So let's see whether this one makes sense. If you are thinking transactional, all right, it's like I do something for you, you do something for me. I do something for you, you do something for me. That's transactional. So, Malaysia has this pastime. We call it pasar malam. Okay, we call it a night market. All right. Now, if you patronize night markets, okay, and if you look at the way the transactions happen, now what is the typical habits of the customers patronizing night markets?
Bargaining.
Yes, the first thing they talk about is always bargaining.
Yeah.
But when you talk about bargaining, okay, just look at the thinking about the merchants, okay, the hawkers over there. So what kind of pricing they normally do?
It's already almost rock bottom.
No, when they sell.
Oh, when they sell, they will probably...
Yeah, they will give you the highest price.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you ask yourself, why do they give you the highest price?
Because they already preparing themselves for the onslaught of the bargaining.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the conditioning of the customers is okay, because you always charge very high price, you force me to bargain because that's the natural tendency. Okay.
Correct,
so therefore you will charge high price and my job is to bargain you down so that to find a price. And the way the more this culture what you call continue, okay, and the more they would do this, and this happens in almost every kind of markets like this, even when you go overseas and all that.
That's right.
Now, the reason for that, if you look at it, is because the hawkers, the merchants over there don't expect to see you anymore. Okay,
it's a once-off.
It's a one-off deal. It's a one-off deal because look, you are curious. You're gonna walk past here. I don't know you. You don't know me. Okay, this is the first time. This is the only opportunity I have to charge as much as you can,
correct,
as I can. And then you, as the customer, say, I'm not gonna pass here, and I will try to bargain it down. Okay, so now think about this, and it happens often as well. You bargain it down. You buy the price, 50% discount. Okay, you buy. Then you walk 3 stores later, you find the price is even cheaper there, and that happens as well. And where I want to kind of get employees to start thinking is this, okay? If you maintain that kind of mindset, you will always have the relationship with your company.
Very transactional.
Very transactional. And I want to get them to think about investing. I want the people to invest in each other. Company invest in you because they think long term.
Yes.
You invest in a company because you think long term.
Correct.
So when the company invests in the employee, what do? Okay, they coach, they provide training,
correct,
they provide work opportunities for you to test out your new skills and all that. That's what they invest in you. And how do you invest in a company? Okay, you invest in a company because you do more.
Yeah.
Okay, don't just do what you've been asked, but do more. Okay, do what even you ask. Give ideas, give suggestions, and all that, and participate in the business itself. And then in the way you're investing each other.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, okay? If you see mature business, what they do is that they invest in each other.
Yeah.
So the night market approach is one type pasar malam approach. But when you see the other business, okay, where you see the art market, they invest in each other. You come, they look after you, all that, okay? So it's all about investing.
And it's great that you bring up this point about co-investing in each other, because back to your two principles earlier about your career as a business and that your career, the previous point was with regards to career by design, sorry.
Yep.
A lot of employees in the SME markets in Malaysia will keep on complaining. I don't know about the US, but a lot of SMEs, they will complain, oh, my employer never sends me for training. I only do basic mandatory. I'm pretty sure you guys hear this all the time if you train, right? So I see Meng Chai has a very good. So what would be, I would love to hear both your opinions about, someone in that scenario, fight or flight, or can they design a career out of it in a way?
In fact, in what I've been doing for the past 10 years, okay, where I'm involved in conducting, facilitating workshop and all that. To my surprise, a lot of companies are actually putting a lot of investment in the people. Okay, they organize workshop and all that. They give you top class because the hotels with good food and the workshop is literally not cheap. And what I have to my so-called disappointment is sometimes you have a workshop designed for 20, only 4 turn up. So it's not that organizations are not investing, okay? But sometimes you find the attitude of the employees themselves thinking that,
it's another training.
It's another training, I got no time, I got work. And now, maybe it's their fault, maybe it's not their fault, because maybe the work is such that it's not rearranged and nobody gives them the idea about what is this course about, how it's benefit to the organization. I mean, it's not about just them, but it's the whole way of thinking and working.
I see.
To get them to go. But there's another thing that which is unfortunate. Let's say you just brought the idea about SMEs.
Yeah.
SMEs traditionally, because they spending money is something that they are very conscious about.
Correct.
So investing in people, they always scratch their head and say, why should I invest? If I invest in this person here, this person after that he leaves or quits, I will have a problem.
Yeah.
But and that is not in just Malaysia, but it happens a lot of places
anyway,
as well.
Yeah.
And there is this saying, and it's a joke, okay? The CEO, is mentioning this to someone. It says that, what's the point of investing in my people and they leave? Well, somebody make a counter argument and say, yes, imagine if you don't invest and they stay.
Oh, that's a good one. I love that. I love that.
I mean, you think about this, okay? I mean, you got a dilemma, okay? You invest and you worry you better leave, but if you don't invest, they stay.
It's like there's two. It's like if you do this, you die. Here you might die. Pick the door that you might die. Right?
You got to figure out what you want.
Actually, I love that comeback where it's like
isn't it? You got to figure out. And I'm saying that why do you have to play lose game?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
okay.
Nobody wants to take the risk, you see.
Yes,
but someone has to be willing to stick their neck out a little bit to be able to gain the
Actually. My preferred method is this. Okay? Why I want to write this book, and when I talk about take charge, don't wait. As an employee, it's to your advantage if you invest in yourself. And this is the advice I give to my children. Okay? I give my children, I say that, and I do this myself as well.
Yeah.
Invest 10% of your gross income, okay, every year on yourself, regardless of whether the company invests in you.
Wise advice.
Okay, you either invest yourself in the personal growth. Okay, you read books, you attend seminars. I don't care what type of seminars you have to attend, what kind of books you have to read. As long as you read and you attend seminars, you take ownership to invest in yourself. If the company invests in you, bonus.
Yeah, actually, I have a personal sharing before I get to Saqib. Right, the principles that you just mentioned. Right, I have practiced it since I was 17. And I didn't do it in a way consciously. I just did it subconsciously because I was just curious. Yeah. I was just curious to learn about things. and it has worked wonders for me lah. And it's great that you bring this up, because a lot of the people that MJ and I meet, and even people that who are students and now are our business partners, actually adopt a lot of these principles. They invest in themselves. They're willing to, the guy who's helping us up with our production and improving our quality. He's a budding a producer of short films, and he invested in himself. He didn't wait, because he's a freelancer. Who are you going to wait? You're not going to wait for Sony Pictures to sponsor you, right? So Saqib, sorry, I hijacked. Any thoughts on this?
No, I think it was a good exchange. So I just want to address one more point regarding this idea of the employee mindset.
Yeah.
So I know that there'll be some out there who think, that, look, there's an obvious power dynamic at play when it comes to an employer and employee, right? And the idea is that, okay, we can't just ignore the fact that an employer maybe in a certain power totem pole is higher placed than an employee, etc. Well, the idea I think that we're trying to get across with avoiding an employee mindset is to remember that you have your own sort of value as well. Otherwise, if you are valueless, then you wouldn't be employed in the first place. You're delivering some form of value to that employer, right? Otherwise, again, what are you there for?
Yeah.
So I've seen, when I've worked in different teams, that this sort of employee mindset sort of manifests in many ways when it comes to even engaging with certain supervisors, that you would have employees who don't even want to engage on a one-to-one level, feeling that sense of a power differential with those who are higher up. And I think that those employees who have more of a sense of their own value and are more comfortable in their own skin and in their own career development find it much easier to move upward, simply because they're able to engage with the higher ups and even their employer on a basis that is more level.
Yeah.
And I think that's important when we address the employee mindset. It's not to say that, these are just completely equal parties in transaction. It's just to say that, you're also delivering value. It's not just that your employer is being charitable by giving you an income, which sometimes I think subconsciously a lot of employees sort of feel that. And I think that's kind of unfortunate. I wanted also to just make a quick point about the structure of the book, because we're talking here about the principles, and just so the viewers know, the way Meng Chai and I we structured the book as a sort of blueprint for how to design your career, and we start with 7 career design principles. And the reason we started with these is that we feel that actually these principles are sort of encapsulated in people who successfully design their career, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, because of course, as you mentioned, some of these principles you've already adopted even without giving it a name per se. So what we've done is we've sort of given it a name, and we've listed down certain principles that we feel are intrinsic to a well-designed career. And the book they form the sort of foundation of the book. And along with those principles, we have a certain number of also strategies. We call them career design strategies that are more sort of practical, deliverable sort of tips of how you go about working in your career in different areas. It can be your own development. It can be related to work-life balance, income, and how to deal with bosses. So there's that's a more practical section of the book, and the design principles are things that are deeper, and they relate to your own psychology and your own approach that you're going to take. So I just wanted to give a sort of outline of that for viewers who are curious about what the book structure is about.
More importantly, if the viewers are more curious about the book structure, get the book.
Exactly.
No, we'll come to that.
I have a question about the practical side of things. We'll talk a little bit about that later in this discussion, but just want to get your thoughts on what you mentioned just now about that power dynamic, where some people would even put themselves in the conversation of, dealing with superiors and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I know both of you all use this word in the book, which is a self-limiting belief, right? So what practical steps advice will you give for people who perhaps are in that category of I'm not good enough, basically, to step out of that, to say, hey, maybe I should start negotiating, maybe I should start showing the world that I have value, because, and this is probably more applicable to an Asian context where the mindset of, and I want to link this to another principle, which is that hard work and talent. As long as I'm hardworking and I'm talented, people are going to see my value. I don't need to push my way and to shout about my value, right? And I probably don't have the confidence to do it anyway. What would you say to this person?
I want to give an analogy.
Yeah.
All right. If I'm going to ask, if I have a room full of people, and I'm going to ask them, I say, have you heard of McDonald's? How many people will say yes?
Most people.
Almost everyone will say yes. All right. So they know about McDonald's and they heard about McDonald's. So my question is this. If everybody had heard McDonald's, and if I ask them again, I say, would you know what McDonald's represents, or what industry are they in? Would they know?
Yeah.
I'm sure they would know. So here's the thing. If they know McDonald's, what the McDonald's is about, what it represents, and it's in the food industry, and what, so do they have the best, most healthy food?
No.
Nope. Is the what do you call the product they sell the cheapest?
No.
No. Okay. So they know about the McDonald's. They know that they are not the most healthy food, the best food, or the cheapest food. So my question is this: why are McDonald's still advertising every day?
Question.
Why? Everybody knows everything about McDonald's.
Yeah.
Why are they advertising? And they're still advertising. They spend billions.
Top of mind?
Yep.
New flavors.
Possible. But sometimes the advertisement doesn't even contain the product.
Yeah, it's an old product, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
So why are they advertising?
I think for me it will be top of mind. I'm a victim now because every weekend it's the toys.
I think people sometimes might forget the taste of filet of fish, perhaps.
Okay. So here's the thing. I mean, yeah, they're spending a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah.
So my point is this. Okay, there are always two things in if you want to think about career. Number one is there is this thing called you. Okay, you, that means you have to be a good product for someone. Okay, in either in terms of your service delivery or you are capable of doing something. All right. So you by yourself must be a good product. So I see the principles as talking about you, like what Saqib talked about. Okay, the people who are successful in careers, whether by design or by accident, they have all those ingredients in them to be successful. So we encapsulate that into principles. The design strategies is more towards and say that how you position yourself so that people are aware of you. They see you, okay? They notice you. So not only are you a good product, so and once you position that, then this is what I call positioning. That's why in the book, one of the chapters is called being visible. Okay, so to answer your question, so what do you do? Okay, when you feel yourself, because of the power dynamics, you feel yourself you are not so-called you find yourself holding the shorter end of the stick, so to speak. Okay, change the equation. Okay, there are a couple of chapters that actually addresses that. Okay,
Yeah.
one is that what's your mastery? Okay, so if you say you're good, okay, so what are you good at? Okay, what are you known about? Okay, so in the case of McDonald's, they are not known for the best food, okay, for the healthiest food, for the best price. They are not known for any of this. So, but what are they known about? Why people go to them? Speed, convenience, location. So therefore, what you think is the product is actually not the product. Okay, what they are selling is actually not the product. What they are selling are other things. And say, therefore, as an individual, make that recognition. Okay, what do you represent? What do you carry as a brand? When somebody mentions your name, what do you want to be known of? All right, and that is the part that you can control.
Understand. It's like person A is known to be trustworthy. That means whatever you do. Or person B is known to be very meticulous, very detail oriented, or person C is very known to be a speedy turnaround or a troubleshooter. You know that branding, like in a way,
When somebody mention your name, okay, what does it represent? Or say, oh, you think about this one, okay, I think this person is the best person to do it. Okay, then you mean something already.
Great, great.
Yeah. On that question that you mentioned regarding self-limiting beliefs. So this is actually a term that we got from our coaching sort of methodology. And what we find is that there may be people who have all the tools for success, except internally, because of certain beliefs that are ingrained in their mind, they can't actually break through and get to the next level. So self-limiting beliefs are those type of beliefs that may not even be on a conscious level, but that a person may they may believe and end up causing some degree of limitation and harm in their career. And we address that because a lot of what we talk about in the book relates to mindset and psychology. It's not necessarily positive psychology, but it is somewhat it is somewhat related to the fact that you have to overcome some mental barriers to achieve a certain amount of success, and that means confronting a certain degree of anxiety that you experience, which is natural. I mean, anybody who has to move towards next levels of success will have to encounter some degree of anxiety. So anxiety, to a certain extent, is actually a good emotion. It's a sign that you're making some degree of progress. Whereas if you have no anxiety at all, right, it means that you're pretty comfortable where you're at.
Yeah.
So this is sort of something that we have to address. And then also on the point of hard work and talent being, less considered versus results, that's something that unfortunately a lot of professionals find out the hard way, where again, it goes back to that sort of social blueprint that they inherit, that maybe unfortunately even educators imbibe that type of knowledge, which is that, okay, as long as I stick to the basics and do what my job description tells me to do and I do it well, if I keep my head down, then the employer is going to notice my track record, and eventually I'll be recognized and I'll be given, a higher post or whatever. And what we find is that, unfortunately, it's really not about just how well you do a specific job, but what are the actual results that come from doing that work. And taking a more result-oriented approach to your work doesn't necessarily mean you sort of water down the quality of what you're doing, right? You can write a really fine, high-quality report. You can do a specific task very well, but always think back to, why are you doing this, right? Which I find, unfortunately, in larger, more bureaucratic organizations, that tends to get lost, unfortunately. The why of what you're doing, right? And what value is this work for the organization. So always try and remember that. I know that, from my own experience, sometimes when I was doing reports for an organization, you have to do after an activity, you do a report, and I almost treat it as a sort of perfunctory thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do what I think it would be a good job. But I have to remember that, okay, it's actually only going to be read by, maybe a few different individuals. And what do those individuals want? And I have to think from that approach. So when we talk about that principle of it's not to diminish talent or hard work, I think they definitely are there. It's just that you have to connect that and be strategic about it with the results that the company wants from the work that you're giving. And, there is hard work. There's also smart work. If you can marry the two, then of course you're a super saiyan, right? Level of, but definitely you don't want your hard work to go squandered. And I think that's something that Meng Chai, when we were discussing, he sort of hit upon as well.
Yeah. And to your point about that, I'm just going to go straight to design strategy tour because I think it's very related, which is be visible. And I love the example that you gave about I'm not going to spoil it, so people will actually be forced to read the book. I kind of hope for it, but in a way, when your work and is being taken, the credit is being taken for your work from. There is always this either self-limiting or there's a lot of common norms or belief that you shouldn't stand out, you shouldn't be trying to blow your own trumpet and all that. Maybe don't be in the background. I think maybe you guys could elaborate. Maybe Meng Chai, we start with you about related to what we all just said about being not the self-limiting belief that you can do more, that you should stand out.
Yeah, and how to be visible. I think that's
how to be visible without being
there are many ways you can be visible, okay? And you don't have to do it in a way that like be in the face of people. I give one example, and this is actually a true story.
Yeah.
There was this young lady. Okay, he joined one of the top local banks. Okay, and she joined that, and then she's quite pretty young. Okay, in the sense that she just joined after 1 or 2 years, but she joined the sports activities in the bank.
I see.
Okay, and because the sport activity, like example, they have badminton or they have games like this.
Yeah.
And because she plays badminton quite regularly, so then she plays just in the sports activities for the bank. And guess what? In there, then you have other senior bank officers or even including the CEO. He's there to play. And because he's pretty good, he say, hey, so and so, can you come and join me and be my partner? You just play badminton. Okay, and guess what? And now suddenly somebody knows your name. Yes. Very high up knows your name and who you are and what you do. And then, when in between games, you can talk and know what you do, all that sort of thing. And then suddenly, in office, when you walk the time and they see you, say, hi, so and so, and how are you? Everybody looking at you, hey, this is a CEO, no?
Yeah.
How you know? How you know your name?
Knows.
And it was nothing, it was just a game.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that individuals can do all that, isn't it? I mean, you can organize the annual dinner.
Yeah.
Okay, you can organize some charity events. The thing is that, are you stepping up? It's not just work. Okay, it's just, for the lack of a better word, it's just common sense, isn't it? All right, you can do all these things, and it doesn't take a lot.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, organize more badminton games.
No, actually, we had Saqib, maybe just to share, we had we had a sports activity.
Yeah.
And the joke was the people on the futsal court, cumulatively, they managed about close to 100 million. I kid you not. It was just a futsal game. And we just like, okay, roughly it's 100
Maybe
million.
you should start like tackling them so they remember.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
There you go. And you think you're nobody, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And all you just take is a single event, and everybody notices you already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, just to tag on Meng Chai's point, when it comes to visibility, some of the self-limiting beliefs is that okay, I'm actually not that good, right? Or I'm suffering from imposter syndrome, where I think
Correct.
I don't actually justify this degree of attention that I'm putting on myself, right? Or I'm just faking it, right? And that unfortunately is very common, right? And it would be great if we could reach a level where we say, yes, I feel I'm no longer an imposter, and I can put this degree of attention on myself without any degree of anxiety. But in our experience, that's sort of a necessary boundary you have to cross, where you have to be comfortable with having an uncomfortable degree of attention on yourself. So I would put a distinction between somebody who wants attention, not in a selfish way, but to have recognition for their work, but is not getting it, versus somebody who needs it for the nature of the work, but is uncomfortable putting themselves out there. I think that these are sort of two classes of professionals. So in the case of the first, they need to really look at how they can actually connect and communicate about what they're doing in a way that doesn't come across as standoffish and grandstanding. I have so many ex-colleagues who I know who were very hardworking and very persistent in their work, but ended up not getting noticed at all by the boss or just being completely sidelined. And I think that's very unfortunate. But you have a responsibility to make sure that the work that you do is identified with you as well, right? That doesn't mean that you're not a team player at all. It just means that you're putting your face out there, right? And you're not deliberately downplaying your own role. And you're effective in at least articulating the nature of your role. Whereas the other person who's uncomfortable putting themselves out there, I mean, their challenge is more related to just being comfortable with being uncomfortable and realizing that they're always going to be on some level suffering from this degree of imposter syndrome. And many, within our coaching community, we have to sort of, when you become a new coach and you want to put yourself in the professional space and sort of get new clients, you have to overcome that barrier. And it's not easy, but time sort of works its way.
Great.
Very great. I want to move on a little bit about, outside of work, right? And I think in design strategy 2 is both of you stress the importance of using your skills to build connections outside of work. Why is this important?
Remember just now when you mentioned something about power dynamic?
Yeah.
All right. Power dynamic in the sense that if you keep yourself confined in your area of work, you always have this sense, that you're inferior to somebody holding a superior position, whether it's a boss or organization.
Because that's your life, right? That is your...
Yeah. They control your salary, they control your promotion, they control your life, and one third of your life is in the office.
Yep.
So there's a certain sense of lack of control
or hierarchy.
Yeah, hierarchy or whatnot. Now, when you are able to do something yourself, like example, while you network with outside, you can also help the company because of your networking. You increase your exposure in terms of knowing what are things out there, the people out there. If you are network with, let's say, clients, okay, you find more clients. Okay, even if you network on the supply side, maybe you increase your options of getting different supplies. When you network, you can also expose yourself as well.
Yeah.
Okay, know about who you are and what you can do, and so the opportunity you can also help the company because of your networking, but you also help yourself because in the process of networking, somebody may notice you and want you for yourself. Okay, so that what will be there's not much of a downside. Okay, because you can also use your personal time to network. Okay, if you want to have a golf game with somebody, why not? If you want to go for a vacation or go for a road trip with someone and you deep network with somebody, and it just keep on adding value everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are in control then for how you want to help the company and how you want to help yourself.
Yeah, great. I just want to share, it just triggered me to share this about Li Ka-shing. Li Ka-shing had a rule, and I hope I remember the rule correctly. He made a rule that he would spend 10% of his income and meet someone that he wanted to learn from once a month. So he will save up his money. I mean, obviously when he started, it wasn't too well off, but he made it a rule that he will spend 10% of income treating the person he wanted to learn from for lunch and to actually network outside of his work and life.
My friend have one rule. Okay, and he's the entrepreneur.
Okay.
All right. And what he does is that because entrepreneur, you control your own time.
Correct.
And the biggest fear about being an entrepreneur is lack of discipline. Because you can wake up whatever time.
Yes,
you are in control, okay?
Yes.
You are the boss, right? But here he maintained the discipline. He says, every day, if I don't have things going on, I will not go home until I meet 3%.
Interesting.
I will not go home until I meet 3%. And this 3% can be for anything, okay? It can be either I learn from the person, I share with the person. If not, I just connect and just make friends. But if I don't meet 3% in a day, I don't go home.
Wow.
Wow. So on
there's
number
business
two,
thinking.
on number two, he'll find until his wife might have to call him and say, "Where are you?"
Yeah, but that's the thing, you see, because he fills up his time. Okay, that means he will not go home before 5. If he doesn't have anything, if he doesn't meet at least 3 person. Okay, and I'm saying that just imagine that, and if as an employee you maintain that kind of mindset, okay, like think like again like a business owner.
Yeah.
Okay, and maintain that self-discipline. Can you imagine how much advantage you have?
Oh yes, exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
So how about the person who, maybe this question will be for Saqib, right? How about the person who perhaps has a job that consumes him a lot?
Yeah.
So we have friends in auditing, we have
yes.
friends in finance, maybe tech or whatever.
Or even manufacturing that runs 24/7.
Whatever, like oil and gas, 2 weeks offshore, right?
Yeah.
Like, essentially, you mentioned 1/3 of their life is in work. For people like that, it's 2/3, right? Essentially. How do these people find the time then? You know?
Saqib.
I mean that goes on to deeper questions of even work-life balance, right?
Right.
Whether that is a healthy degree of work, if it's going to be so consumptive. I mean, I don't know, because if they're satisfied at that point, being in such a consuming line of work, they would have to make an equation of what's the opportunity cost of the amount of overtime they're giving towards their work versus using that in networking and connecting to others, right? That's a big challenge, because definitely if they don't have time to network at all, as in zero, you could start asking how much time do they have for even the rest of their personal life. I think that the same way you can relate it to investment, as in financial investment for your future. Yes, you can say I'm just too busy to do that, right? But at some point, during your career, there's going to be a liability that you have to pay for not having spent that time investing earlier. So you have to see networking in a sort of similar fashion, that this is basically the level of professional connections that you build, right? This sort of larger web that you've developed. This works towards your advantage, and there are so many cases of people who don't have this larger web who suffer later on, simply because they don't have a backup, for example, or when it comes time to them to look to different opportunities, there's nobody to recommend them, right? So you have to see it, I guess, less as as an optional. Okay, if it's good, it's good. If it's there, if it's not, it doesn't matter. And more as something that relates to long-term career development, and the same way you would do with financial investment as well. I mean, it requires a certain degree of discipline, because if you continually sideline it, you're going to have to pay the cost of that later on. So, if it's on just on practical level, somebody is so consumed with their work, I would say for them to even schedule it at least even on a monthly basis, if they're able to, right? To look at maybe professional organizations within their own area, if they have associations that meet up where they can actually occasionally go, maybe conferences, training seminars, opportunities where they can actually meet people in their field and develop that web of connections, I think is quite important. But I'm not sure if I necessarily buy the excuse that somebody says, I just don't have time at all 365 days a year. I think that's kind of a stretch. I think that when it comes, if something is a priority enough, then you make the time for it.
Great. Design strategy 5. You guys put this as a very good quote. You're only as good as your last game.
Yeah, this is I just want to share on this point as well, and why I included this is because I am a casual weightlifter. So I know this is an incredibly powerful principle, because what ends up happening is that people start comparing, and you tell me whether I'm getting it right when it comes to the way you guys interpret this quote, right? And that is, when you weight lift, you don't try to weight lift heavier than the other guy. You weight lift, or rather, if you hit the targets of your weightlifting, you shouldn't be too excited about it. And it's always on to the next goal, on to the next goal, on to the next goal. Am I getting your interpretation right, or maybe there's more?
I use it as a sport analogy.
Yeah.
If you look at a competitive sport, okay, and you think about, let's say, a lot of people follow the British soccer.
Okay.
English
right,
Premier League. Okay.
That's right.
If you look at the way they treat the coaches, all right, you try to lose a game. Okay, you try to lose 2 games. Okay, you may have a series of successes in the past. Okay, you try to lose 2 games. You see what the
But
what
that
the
depends on the
spectators-
team. Depends on which team.
Actually,
okay.
some
Some teams,
context,
yeah.
some context for you and Meng Chai,
Yeah.
Man U
Yeah,
fan,
so
ex-Man U Liverpool
Yep,
fan.
yep,
So,
yep.
So-
yeah, okay. So my question is, how forgiving are you towards the coaches, when they start losing game?
is Solskjaer still employed?
no, see, it depends on the manager, lah.
Yeah.
But I know, let's use Man United for
Yeah.
example, because it's always in the news, right?
Yeah.
It all depends on because there's a certain bias, right?
Yeah.
So if it's usually maybe an English manager or
Yep.
or maybe a manager, an ex-player, or that they're a lot more lenient, right?
Yeah.
Because there's some emotional connection.
Yeah.
But if it's some European so-called maestro,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, by game 5 you're out.
Okay. Now, even if you say there's an emotional connection and all
Yeah,
that, you
that's
give them a chance. But how long can you give them?
Yeah.
Correct? Not so. If you can take say, hey, look, last year we had a very good run, and we were the champion leagues and all that. Okay, but this year, like you say, you try to lose a couple of matches, you know the head may roll.
Yeah. Contrary to that, I think the person that lasted the longest without a very big trophy was Arsene Wenger.
Yeah. No,
Arsene-
but his ending was very, very terrible.
Yeah,
He had
his
a very
ending was
bad ending.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you see, Arsene Wenger for me never really won a lot of things, but he survived quite long at Arsenal.
But if you follow the general rule,
Yeah, that's right.
you won't last long.
Yeah.
Okay, your fan will not forgive you.
Even Solskjaer, Ole Gunnar, I used to watch him in my age as a
Yeah.
player, right? I quite admire his, but what I hear about Man U today is Solskjaer still going to have his job, and he's only game 4, 5?
No. You mean the new coach?
No, I mean, how long did Solskjaer lost? How many times did Solskjaer lost before? He
Yeah,
got-
about I think 3 to 4 times
Yeah.
since in a row. Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm saying that if you start thinking like that, then you're playing the thing like a game.
Right.
Right.
Let me ask all of you as I'm not sure about Saqib, but as married man, right? Do you find this to be true as well? Do you find that what you've done for your wife in the past few decades, and you made one mistake today, everything's forgotten, nothing counts?
Okay. For this, we apply.
Okay.
We apply what we call the 7 habits.
Okay.
Okay,
what else?
okay.
I've
Build emotional bank account.
e-banking e-banking.
Emotional bank account. Why? Because when you develop relationship, you always build emotional bank account.
Yeah.
And the reason why you survive conflict is because you got high emotional bank account.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Stephen Covey says that. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you have a high emotional bank account, you can draw down and it doesn't hurt the relationship.
I see.
Okay, and that's fine.
Keep the savings rate very high.
Yeah.
For 6 months. About that, 6 months, right? That's
But there's a limit to the drawdown at some point.
Yeah, how
I
about
just,
you,
I just
Saqib?
love Meng Chai's investor's approach to relationships.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but how about you, Saqib, about this point about you're only as good as your last game?
I mean, the way we sort of interpret it is very similar to don't rest on your laurels.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, I think the first is, of course, you should have some laurels to begin with, right? So that helps. But also, just remember that the success of your work. I mean, it only is fresh in your brain. Usually, for others, it'll be yesterday's news. Of course, that if it's a responsible employer, they're not going to instantly regret the work that you do. But the problem is that we have a natural tendency to be complacent, right?
Yeah.
And that's especially true when it comes to work, right? If you have a major milestone, if you get a major contract, if you achieve, if you secure a big client, etc., in your mind, you may think that, okay, maybe this gives me some credit for the next, 6 months. I don't have to really push myself, right? So we have to sort of resist that natural tendency to be complacent when it comes to our work performance. And I think that is not easy. But I think if we can get addicted a bit to this, the success of achieving these milestones, right? Rather than seeing that we have achieved it, okay, that's an excuse to take it easy. Take that bit of sort of rush or adrenaline that you get and use that as a motivation to try and achieve more, right? I'm not saying become a total success addict, but I'm saying that, you have to be able to continually maintain and improve your standards. So recognize that we all have a tendency to be complacent. I think that's the thing that we have to be very careful about, right? And in my own experience, I've seen that you had some employees, for example, who were doing very well, and then suddenly management changes or the leadership changes, and you have a new leader who's not familiar at all with what that employee has done, right?
You start from square one again.
Yeah, so then the employee has to sort of build their reputation from scratch, right? So these things can be very fickle. And we have to be aware that, something you did maybe 2 years ago, which can still be an outstanding achievement, doesn't necessarily grant you a pass, for the future to come.
Do you think that this principle of using the past to justify your current behavior is true in reverse as well? For example, you talk about the guy who has a hot hand who's doing really well and then he rests on his laurels. But what about the guy who's not been so hot, right? Who's been really downtrodden and bad? It's basically bad luck, whatever. He's not been performing well. And that may weigh on his psychology, not complacent, of course, but in reverse, where maybe he's a bit down. It's like he don't think he's good enough. Do you think this also applies that, hey, whatever you've not achieved or whatever you failed at in the past doesn't really matter? The same way whatever you achieve in the past also doesn't really matter.
I use this as an analogy example. We have four. In some countries they have 4 seasons.
Yeah,
that's right.
When you're summer, think of winter. When you're winter, think of summer.
Wow.
When you're summer, okay, you got to plan for when things don't work well. Okay,
Yeah.
so what do? Again, you don't go complacent. But when you're winter, you got to be hopeful. Okay, hopeful that it would not last and that things is going to turn around. The only question is that you don't spend time wallowing in self-pity.
Yeah.
All right. Take firm action and you're coming up again, because winter will always go back. The season will change.
Yeah.
The only question is, what do you do when you're there? The biggest danger is that when people are in the summer, they forget about the winter. They don't plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the grasshopper lah.
Yeah. And when you're with winter, okay, be hopeful.
Got it.
Right. I think just to add to that, I've seen that people tend to devalue sometimes their own work also, right? I think I would say to even a person who thinks that they've just done a mediocre job, right? Just to remind them, even if they do, let's say they just do the bare minimum of their job description, even doing that consistently, right, on for a certain length of time itself is an achievement that they can at least recognize, right? I mean, some people think that doing their job itself is nothing, not a big deal, but I would say at least it's as a bottom level, it's an achievement that they can recognize, that they've done at least something consistently. Because some people would just say, okay, I don't do anything, or they just completely dismiss what they've done altogether. And I think that can be a bit unhealthy, especially because we need to recognize, even if whatever input we've given towards our career, now we don't need to blow it out of proportion, but we still need to recognize it.
Great.
Yeah.
Design strategy 9, when to quit.
Yeah, I think this is the more practical part of the,
Yeah, and I want to add about probably a book that I recently read about 2 years ago, which is Bob Iger. He was CEO of Disney. I think he did a wonderful job. Then he actually stepped back from his role, and now he's in the chairmanship position. The other person I think I would like to highlight is Ajay Banga, who is the CEO of MasterCard. He knew how to step back. So very related to this, it says, don't overstay your welcome. So maybe your thought process on that actually.
Saqib, you want to go at it first?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds a bit threatening, right? Don't overstay your welcome.
Correct.
No,
correct.
I think the idea of is that okay, so I'm a follower of cricket, right? For whatever reason, cricket never really caught on in Malaysia, even though it was a British colony. But it did in Pakistan, where my family is from. So I'm a follower of cricket. One thing in cricket is this idea that you have to time your retirement, right, as a player. So they try and encourage people to cricketers to retire, after they've won a major tournament, right, or when they're in their peak form, right, because the worst thing is having to retire when you haven't scored any runs for a long time, or after a major series loss, and then the selectors come and they remove you from the team, right? So I mean, to use that analogy, when it comes to when to quit, you need to first see, okay, is your current position, what you're doing right now, is it fitting in line with your goals, right? Or has there been a divergence, right? Are you just sort of treading water at the workplace? Also, the primary question is are you getting the value that you need from the job that you're in, right?
Great.
If you're getting diminishing returns, then that's one sign that either you need to really radically change things at work, or you may need to consider leaving. One of the things that we're seeing with this phenomenon called the Great Resignation right now, is that many mid-career professionals are choosing to leave sort of steady jobs, and these are jobs that in the pre-COVID economy they would have probably stuck with, right? But now they're experiencing a degree of flexibility when it comes to the workforce that we haven't seen in a generation. So the idea of the Great Resignation is that you have professionals who can see options in different places and don't see a really compelling reason to just stick with the norm, right? And actually, the Great Resignation has led to this great flirtation, where you have people who are just joining jobs and then quickly doing sort of job hopping to the next position to find something that's more their flavor. Now, the question always is, are you getting the returns from the position that you want, right? And try not to approach a job just for from the aspect of job stability and security, which is a reason. I'm not saying that, I'm not going to disregard that, but try not to have that be the overwhelming reason to stay in a place, right? Because then you can find that you put yourself in a position which can be uncomfortable.
Is some form of exchange of values. Okay, you have a relationship with your boss, or you have a relationship with the organization. There's an exchange value. So if you are receiving values and your value is increasing, okay, and that's good. That means you're benefiting. Or if your company is receiving value from you, they are benefiting. If it's when one side or both sides have the values being dropping, okay, then that will send you a signal, okay, that at the end of the day, this relationship is not working because its value, the value is diminishing, like what Saqib said. Now, the thing is about, first of all, is recognizing it. Okay, do you recognize that, or is the employee recognizing there's diminishing values, either from their side or from the organization side? And if they're going to do something about it, what do they do? All right.
I think sometimes also the reflection is not done, and because of that, a lot of people, in a way, overstay their welcome.
Well, you're familiar with the term old furniture, right?
Oh yeah. We call it locks here in Malaysia.
Right. So I mean, it's actually quite a it's quite a pernicious term, because it's basically saying that you're just occupying space, right?
Yeah.
And you're not actually giving the company anything aside from the fact that you've been there a long time. I mean, you don't want to end up in that position where the overriding reason for you to be in a company is because you've just been there a long time.
Yeah.
That ends up being very self-defeating. And yeah, it's always good to make an exit at a time where you feel your market value is high, that you're actually giving the company can feel your loss. I mean, that's in a sense a better time to leave rather than you leaving at a time where the company won't notice if you're there if you're not there.
And you got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the sports world it's very pronounced. I mean, we've seen it in Michael Jordan. I think probably I know some F1 fans will hate me, but people like Sebastian Vettel or even I think you're nodding your head. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Sebastian Vettel and who's the other guy? The name just left me. I know he's been there for ages. Like he's not won anything over the past few years, so it just overstays their welcome. I think.
Yeah. In sports, it's very easy to see people who are just riding on their fame.
Yeah.
Right. Sadly.
Yeah.
And the strange thing is they would have probably been better remembered as players if they had retired at their peak.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Now this next one I think is very interesting, which I think if you're working for someone, this is really important, right? Which is to be wary of promises, right? And I please explain. What do you guys decide to include this in there?
When you work with someone, sometimes you get compliments like, "Oh, great job, very good."
Right. Right.
And if you get it on a very regular basis, at the end of the year, does it translate to anything? Okay. And if it doesn't, then you kind of leave you wondering as to, okay, so what does all that mean?
Yeah. It's just
Sweet
words. Words.
Yeah. Yeah. And you want to kind of see that the words and the actions match.
Understand.
So just a bit of be alert to that.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes this happens in the hiring process even, right?
Yes.
You're going to get vague statements that tell you, oh yeah, there's a lot of, opportunities here for upward mobility, et cetera, but you're not exactly sure what that means, right? And once you enter the company, you find that a lot of it was just fluff. And unfortunately, unconditional type of promises that don't really get materialized.
Actually, personally in my career, I've seen promises made by superiors to their subordinates. And then the superiors get promoted and then the subordinates just get left behind. I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with that too. So, you stay, you wait for me, you deliver all this. And then the guy the supervisor gets promoted and the guy...
How do you snuff this out, right? How do you, beforehand, as maybe, again, going back to that power dynamic, right? Because all this issue arise out of you being in a smaller position of power. How do you actually snuff out in advance as much as possible that you're being played, essentially?
Okay, this goes back to self-awareness. Okay, the self-awareness part reminds you of that. When somebody says whatever good thing that they can talk about you or compliment you, but do you have a reality check? Do you do a self-reality check? Okay, are you really worth that much? Okay, now a simple way normally, if I would advise somebody, to do a reality check is this. Okay, are you a flight risk? Okay. Now, if an organization sees you as a flight risk, that means they really value you because if you leave, they feel that
something
sense
is
of
lost.
loss. That something is lost. Okay, their business, some part of their business will suffer as a consequence. So, and you need to know that. Okay, but if you kind of don't sense that you're a flight risk, okay, then you need to be aware of the value. And if everything is said about you, how good you are, and nothing happens after that, you really have to be on your toe. Okay, and that's the other part of all the other chapters we have to kick in. That means never leave one thing, or never do only one thing.
Understand?
Okay.
I would also add to that is that one is to not get swept away by praise or any of these statements, right? Also, to try if they're going to give you praise, to have it in a recorded form,
in your appraisal or something written.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So that it's actually not just just between as an interpersonal interaction. Otherwise, it doesn't really mean as much, right? Yeah. So that's another I think tip I would probably add.
Yeah.
It's not a malice,
Yeah.
Sometimes, because I also look sometimes from a business perspective, is let's say, for instance, your boss can make you certain promises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But the intention is not to betray you and not to
Hoodwink
honor it. Okay.
or-
The intention may be good, but sometimes, unfortunately, they may not be in control. Okay. That let's say the business is bad, the circumstances, and they can't deliver. Okay. So, but the fact remains is that you still have to look after yourself. Okay, so you say that, okay, if you happen to work in a company, okay, like for past 5 years, it's not doing much, okay, or trying to trade water, and you still hang around and say, hey, hang around here, the company is going to turn around, but it's not turning around, and then I promise you, when you stay here, when the company turn around, we're going to give you the X, this or that, okay. You have to make your own assessment, okay. It's that, like you say, when to quit. And
The
all this
details
stuff.
matter.
Yeah.
And I would say if you have that relationship with your boss, to try and have a relationship that is real and more matter of fact, right? You can, if you have a boss who you could actually say, look, okay, I am interested in a promotion. I want to know, is that something that's in line, right? Is that something, just to understand where at least they're at, right? Sometimes you may have a boss who could tell you, look, okay, it's not going to happen now, right? But in this next cycle, I think it's possible, right? I mean, there's a lot of employees who are just afraid of even approaching that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
So
back to that self-worth thing, right?
I've in my experience, it's better to have more open, frank, conversations with your supervisor where you can broach these issues rather than just keep it understated and then just get frustrated later if nothing happens.
Yeah.
So let's talk about gossip.
Before
just-
gossip,
yeah.
I just want to get before gossip, there's this design strategy that sounds like almost a drug, which is get everyone addicted to you.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very clickbaity. Sorry to say, it's good. is good, but also maybe a differing opinion about when you volunteer yourself too much, and in a way people take advantage of you. So because you're putting yourself up, I'm offering myself to do a little bit more here and all that, and then in a way it is detrimental to you. What would you say to that? Or am I getting this interpretation wrongly actually?
That is only one aspect. If you volunteer yourself and do this and that, yes, people can take advantage of you, but there's only one aspect of it. But the idea behind this is not about that. The idea about it is when people are addicted to you, that means you are the go-to person. Okay, you may be good. You could be a subject matter expert.
Yeah.
Okay, and whenever they think about this particular let's talk to John. I think John may have an opinion on this. They can come to you. So, and they find that they need your thoughts.
Okay.
Now, the better part of this is not people coming to you; it's the bosses coming to you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear what John think. Okay, then you can see some form of addiction coming to you, and the other part of the addiction is not just coming to you, but more importantly, is you position yourself. Because of people addiction to you, you're in a position of influence.
Got it.
Because now they need to come to you. Because most of the time, the challenge for people is that how do I get somebody to do something or do whatever things you want them to do, or they listen to you and all that. But because you're subject matter expert and they come to you for different things, and they are more obliged to, if you work with them, they say that, okay, John, so no problem. I'll help you on this. I'll help you on that and all that. So now, because people are addicted to you, you are in a better position of influence to get results.
Great.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's in any organization, you're going to have a handful of people who are sort of go-to people on certain things.
Yeah.
And you can identify them. So it's important to be one of those people, especially when it comes to particular topics.
Yeah.
So,
Gossip.
Yeah, look, it's just coffee talk, right? What's so bad about it? Saqib, what's so bad about it?
Yeah. So okay. So let's get it out of the way that all of us gossip or have gossiped at some point, right? I mean, I'm not going to say that everybody, we're saints or angels, right? It's not like, and it's not about being, prudish on this aspect or saying, oh, just be completely benign in the way you talk about people and everything like that. I mean, at a certain point, we have to be realistic. The question is, okay, so to what level, right? And to what is this tendency? So, if we have a reputation for talking behind other people's backs about office or even personal matters, right? And we become known to be doing that. That's a feature of who we are, right? And we're identified in the office as being one of those sort of people, right? That we live for that type of conversation. That can be a very negative thing, right? And it also goes against professionalism in general, right?
Yeah.
But my own personal experience has been that there are a certain sort of contingent at any workplace who sort of live just for that, right? That anything and everything that's the latest sort of office gossip sort of becomes the animating energy behind their day, right? And I think that is somewhat very counterproductive, right? If it becomes, the sort of main energy behind, a lot of your activity, right?
Yeah.
That you're looking forward to having that chat at 4 p.m. With your mates about, the daily sort of dirt, then that's a bit of a problem, right? Because it means that A, you don't have better things to do, right? And B, you're definitely going to be identified as being engaged in that sort of talk, right? So how can you expect people to trust you on a professional level, right? If you're engaged in that sort of thing, even if you are engaged to the extent that you're just known to be listening and just in on those conversations, right? That itself can be kind of dangerous as well. So I'm not saying that, look, let's say if the CEO had some major scandal, of course, everybody's going to be talking about it. But you would expect everybody to talk about it, right? I'm not going to say somebody should be above that. But the question is whether you want that to be an identifying tendency of how you go about work. And I think that's something you would want to avoid, right? And usually if you're somebody who's really focused anyways, you're not going to be engaged in that type of conversation.
Yeah. Meng Chai?
It just, in any relationship, the most important currency is trust. Okay? And the moment trust is taken away, what's left?
Yeah.
In order to secure trust, the moment you gossip, okay, you will diminish trust. It goes without saying.
Yeah.
Now, I would rather suggest to people, if you're going to use any form of energy, even like the gossip, I say convert it to praise, promote. Use the word promote and praise. That means if you want to talk about someone behind their back, promote them.
Edify them,
promote them, praise them, okay? Now this is harder because gossip is easier because gossip tends to pick on something, all of us got something for you to pick if you really want to pick.
Yeah.
But to promote and to edify, it's an effort.
Yeah.
You got to start thinking about what has this person done well, where has this person is good about, all that. And then if you got to talk to somebody and say, I like John because John is good at doing this or that. Okay. Now imagine this. Now this person will be thinking, well, if I'm John, that's the way you treat me. And then if the teams get back to John will say, wow, this person is talking good behind my back. Now wouldn't that be a very good currency to have?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
At workplace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course, since we're talking about gossip, we cannot avoid the talk about bosses, right? I mean, usually they're in the same sentence, right?
Yep.
But I think I want to approach the question from this angle, right? What do you think are obviously this has, if there's a topic about bosses, usually it's how do you deal with a bad boss, right? And how would you categorize the bad bosses out there, and what would be if you were in the role of an employee, let's say, what would be your response to dealing with these different individuals?
There's a chapter in there that immediately tells you that bosses are people, not God.
Correct.
Okay. Now, so what it means basically is this: bosses are not without fault. The questions I ask people, I say, how does one become a boss? How does one become a parent? Okay, you become a parent because you have a child. Okay, it's not that you go to university, take a degree, and become a parent.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right, there's no disqualification.
Parenting
okay?
degrees.
Yeah,
You get it
know.
after the fact, right?
Yeah, after the fact. And
Yeah.
but how do you become a boss? It's also after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay, you have an employee, you become a boss.
Yeah.
Okay, you got no employee, you're not a boss. But you have an employee, you become a boss. Okay, there's no qualification as well. So how does that make you a good boss? So there's no real saying that you are a good boss just because you become a boss.
Yeah.
And because they are people, they are not God. That means they are not infallible. Okay, they have all the challenges that you have.
Yeah.
Now, how does one become a bad boss? Okay, it is not because they are bad boss, because they don't have everything needed to be a good boss. Okay, example. All right, this person, the boss may be very good, okay, treat you well and all that, but one day you have a very bad quarrel at home with the spouse. Okay, and that morning you come to work and then he just shouted at you and almost bite your head off. Okay, and suddenly the way you think about your boss is different.
Yeah.
All right, but the person is human. Okay, or they make a promise to you, but why? Because suddenly they are not able to keep because some deals not work out. I give you an example. Okay, in the pandemic, a lot of companies are facing trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, now if you're going to hold boss accountable for the promises, how do they keep?
Yeah.
Okay, because they are trying to survive.
Yes.
And because of that, I say individual got to kind of have some understanding about the limitations of the person becoming a boss. And that person, some people have this natural ability to be a leader. Example.
Yeah.
Some people don't. Okay. Some people are good in relationship. Some people don't. Okay. So they become a boss because they start a company. They have a certain skill set. Okay, and they just hire. All right. So what they don't have work against them.
I see.
Now, as an employee, if we start understanding that, okay, and not give too much to say, well, I must always work with a good boss and all that, okay, you take responsibility. Whoever you get, okay, whatever they is, you learn to accept who they are, okay, and don't treat them like God like they owe you something, anything like that. But the moment you take responsibility, and then you start to figure out, okay, what you don't have is, what do you now do about it? Okay, and if you are on the outside chance, okay, end up working with somebody who really doesn't add value to you, all right, do you have an option?
Yeah.
Okay, and in the book, I also talk about options as well. Okay, in the form of interview.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
All right.
So you mentioned about what the different types of bosses.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the inattentive boss, right? So the boss who's sort of always absent, not necessarily there, maybe even mentally not there, right? You can have a hostile boss, right? I think Meng Chai mentioned somebody who may actively sort of abuse their position and power to try and keep you sort of subjugated. You can have a boss who is frankly incompetent, right? Who's not good at their job. They may be well-meaning, but they're not good at what they do, right? Which is in many ways the worst, because you're likely never to improve your own performance under that type of boss, because
Correct.
they're not capable.
Correct.
Right? Those are sort of the three main types of bosses that I've seen that tend to be of a negative type. And you kind of need different strategies to deal with each of them.
Yeah. And I think Meng Chai also brought up a good point about the options available. Is it maybe a question rather than a statement? Meng Chai, do you think that people don't think of these options is because they fear of the unknown going out, or is it because they haven't designed the career and thought about the optionalities that they have? What's the common reason, I mean, for most people to move out, not to move out?
But this is what people sometimes don't know about. Okay, how many people actually know the value to the business?
Their own value to the business.
And in fact, you often hear how they discover their value is when they are not happy, they decide to leave, right? And they go for interview. And the interview, they found something they like, and they get an offer. And then when they bring the offer back to the boss, and they tell the offer, say, I got an offer, I want to leave and all that. You know what the boss does? If they think you're good,
They double salary. Yeah.
they counter
They
offer.
match it, yeah.
They counter offer. All right now. So therefore, the question is this: why do they counter offer?
Because you're valuable.
Okay, so why didn't you give me the value in the first place? Why do I need to find out when I want to leave that that's my value? So if I have not taken this step and you have not done this, then I wouldn't have known my value.
Yeah.
Okay, and that means the company would have taken advantage of me.
Yeah.
Okay, but then if you ask the boss, say, do you know my value? The boss also doesn't know your value. The boss will know your value is because you went for an interview and found out how much you're worth. And the boss suddenly realized, I cannot afford to lose you. If that's what you're worth, then that's what I'm going to pay you. So individuals don't do themselves any favor by not knowing. So the first thing you have to do is you got to know your value. All right, and the reason they don't know their value is because they don't attend interview. And the only time they attend interview is because they want to leave. All right, so I'm suggesting for people to attend interview all the time, and not because you want to leave. Okay, and this one brought to me very early in my career, when I was when I was doing an audit, of a client, and I met this gentleman who is the head of the finance team. Then he would tell me, say, hey, sorry, I can't be with you today. I said, where are you going to go? I said, oh, I'm going to go for an interview. I said, oh, openly you tell the whole world you're going for an interview.
Wow.
Okay. And then he said, yeah, I'm going for an interview, but doesn't mean I want to leave. Okay. And then he explained to me, okay, I go for an interview because I want to practice. Okay. I want to have a practice of talking to people. Okay. And then when they build confidence as well, because sometimes during the practice as well, they found out what the company, what they are looking for, and whether they have the thing they're looking for, and how they can contribute to the company. And they also have posture, because I don't have to, if you want me, doesn't mean I want you. Okay, and if I don't like the interview, I can always tell them off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they're not in a position of subjugation, really. Yeah.
And then you may know, okay, like if you ask, let's say, okay, I want a 20%, the 30% more than what you're getting right now, and they are willing to consider it.
Yeah.
Say, okay, now I know my value. And you know what's the best part? Even if you get ridiculous and say I want 50%, and they still want you, and guess what? And if everything looks good, okay, and you make your determination on that, okay, you can still leave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, on the outside chance you get an opportunity like that, why not?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm saying that even if you attend interview, there's no downside, no real downside to you. And even if the boss, let's say your boss found you went to an interview and all that, okay, now they have to be the worry, no worries.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you're really good, let them worry.
Yeah. Keep
All
them
right?
on the toes.
Yeah, and so therefore you create options for yourself and not having to depend on anybody. All right. So if you don't think, if you think that you're not getting the best deal, okay, just attend interview. For all you know, okay, you may end up that when you attend the interview, actually you have the best deal already.
Yeah.
It can be the other way around.
Correct.
It's to verify what you have now. Is it good or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Now I have a couple more questions. The first one is, both you make a distinction in the book between work-life balance and life balance, right? I think this is something that people my generation like to talk a lot about, which is need work-life balance, and we alluded, slightly to it earlier on in the discussion. But what is the difference? Maybe Saqib.
Yep, Saqib. You should.
Yeah,
be able
so
to answer this.
that's okay. So work-life balance is sort of the traditional way they usually frame the question of how to separate this whole area you have here called work and this area here called life, and how you can have them as sort of separate domains, and in terms of the time that you commit on a daily or even on a regular basis. And that's sort of the traditional framing of your time management. And in the book, we talk about thinking things in terms of your life balance rather than work-life balance. And the reason we say that is because we assume that first, work is part of life, right? I mean, it's very hard to say that, if you spend 1/3 of your life working, that time is not part of life. That is part of life. I mean, it's important to think of things in terms of, that time is not a separate dimension of existence. But also, so when you start thinking of things in that term, in those ways, you need to ask yourself, okay, what are my priorities, right? And does my time management reflect my priorities in my life? And that's not to say that it has to be disproportionately more towards your career, right? You could want a career where your time spent on your career is actually far less than maybe more, high fly CEOs, right? And I think we're seeing an impulse nowadays in the workspace to push for a 4-day work week, for example, right?
Yeah.
Which you're probably hearing about. And I think that the reasoning behind this is because a lot of people feel that they're not spending as much time towards other aspects of their life as they should. So we try and think of work as a part of life. We encourage people to see it that way rather than to separate it mentally, to see the time and energy that they put, the creative energies that they commit to their work as part of their life journey. And then we also encourage people to think broadly in terms of the life that they want and what their priorities are, and to just map out their time accordingly, and to try and move themselves in even in a career direction where the time that they're spending towards a career is exactly what they would want, right? Relative to other aspects of their life. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, and prior to this podcast, Meng Chai kind of dumbfounded me a little bit, because he said, "You guys think about work 24/7, right?" And I was like, yeah, I kind of think of it, because we're both entrepreneurs, even though we have a lot of flexible time. But it's right. We get inspiration sometimes at 2 a.m. if we can't sleep and things like that as entrepreneurs. But as employees, and now you're encouraging them to think like business people. I think that in a way, it's very hard to put a separation in between purely work, purely life. I think that's how I would get that message from you guys, right?
Let me see whether this makes sense to you.
Yeah.
I see work-life balance as what you do, does it serve you? If what you do serves you, okay, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
The key is, if you're not careful, you end up serving the thing. So if you have a career, if you serve the career, then something is wrong with the equation. Okay, everything in life that you do, does it serve you?
And
That's
I think you brought up, it's a great point you brought up. Is it because, and do correct me if I'm wrong, is it because you end up serving the career is because you do not set your boundaries correctly?
It could be. It could be.
Yeah, one of the points we make in the book is that at any point there may be an imbalance that may not necessarily be a bad thing. An imbalance either towards the career side or towards the other aspects of your life. It depends on your priorities, right? So look, let's say tomorrow you have a high profile meeting that you need to attend, but God forbid there's an accident involving a member of your family. Obviously, I'm assuming most people will cancel the meeting and go towards the family because that's a priority situation at that time.
Correct.
Right? So the time justified to spend with the family is there based on the priority at that moment. So the thing is that, and even if that cuts in the middle of your workday, right? The question is, if you're in a phase of your life where your priorities are elsewhere outside of work, right? Then if you're clear in your mind that your priority is elsewhere, then the question is whether you're making the time to match that, right? So I think it's important to be comfortable with the idea of having an imbalance, right? There may be phases of your life where it's justified for you to maybe spend a disproportionate amount of time on your career because maybe things at home is stabilized, right?
Yeah.
And it makes sense in that way. So having an imbalance at that time or at any time is completely okay, at least from the way I see it. But as long as it's matching your priorities that you have set, right? So a lot of people make the mistake of not having their priorities set, right? And not understanding or not at least reflecting internally, what is my priority at what particular phase of life I'm in? And can I justify spending time here versus there? think that's important.
Great.
Okay. I just have one final question because I just realized it's like almost 2 hours.
Yeah,
just flew
man.
by.
Yeah, it's flown by.
Yeah. And this is a pretty general question, so it might be difficult, might not be difficult, but do your best. To both of y'all, what would you say are your biggest advice or advices, plural, to someone starting their career, in the middle of their career and at the end of their career? Because obviously they're in different phases of their lives, right?
Oh, that's a loaded question, man.
Yeah, which is why I say do your best.
Actually, we covered that, isn't it, Saqib? You know,
We do
talk
cover
about
it
the
in the
four
beginning.
phases.
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We talk about phases of your career, and we reflect a bit on each phase. Now, when we talk about phases, we don't necessarily mean that we don't connect that to a particular timeline. So you could go through those phases at different points in your work journey, but the idea is that you're either learning, you're applying, you're growing, or you're giving, right?
Yeah.
So we identify these 4 stages, and I think if you read more in the book, it'll cover each particular phase, but it relates to those
The
those
timeline.
points that you mentioned. Now, so somebody early in the career, right? What we're going to encourage them to do is to learn, right? To take a more exploratory sort of mindset into the work process, because that's part of their investment, right?
Yeah.
Knowledge gaining at that particular point. So not to be pressured. Unfortunately, a lot of young people are pressured into making long-term choices very early in the career when they may not be as set in their mind. You know, they may think that they may be pressured by the parents to take a particular career path that they're not necessarily committed to. But what we would encourage them to do is to explore what they're curious and passionate about, and to learn. For somebody in mid-career, that mid-career is usually a point of reflection. And it's a time to sort of reassess priorities and to see what mistakes you've made and what has worked and what's not worked, right? Usually when it comes to a midlife crisis, and let's call it mid-career crisis, right? What happens is that you have certain set patterns of behavior, usually following a sort of social blueprint that I talked about before. And in some cases, they haven't quite materialized the expectations that you had early in your career, right? So the question to ask is why? Why is that the case, right? And our own thesis is that, it relates a lot to the fact that they haven't really taken a proactive stance in their career, and they've sort of been on pilot mode. And then when it comes to the latter stage of the career, one of the advices we give in the book is to think about legacy and giving, and what is sort of the stamp that you're going to put in terms of your company or your field that is going to be reflected even after you've left the space. And a lot of people at the end of the career do think about that. Once they've accomplished what they wanted to do, right? Is to because you're not at that point, you're not hopefully as concerned about money generation or meeting certain milestones. It's more about giving back to people and giving back to your field in a meaningful way. Meng Chai, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
You see the 4 phases as a spectrum. So if you are at the beginning of your journey, there's a lot you don't know. And therefore, the learning part is that you need to know. Okay? But how do you know? So most of the time you know through doing. So you end up doing a lot. And this is the part that if you are new in the career, you don't negotiate.
Yeah.
Okay. If everything is given to you, just do. Okay. You will discover a lot of things about the work, about others, about yourself and all that. So you look at the whole body of knowledge just because you do a lot, and everything gears towards learning. But learning doesn't stop just because you go into another phase. So learning, if you look at the spectrum, learning continues on until the day you stop. So the learning is in the background already. Okay. But the big part of it, you are still learning. Okay. But the second part is where you apply. When you get better, and then you want to test whether or not have you really learned. And the only way you can do that is because you apply. And through the applications and all that, you discover how solid has your knowledge been. Through the trial and errors, through the mistakes that you make and all that, you keep applying. And you actually will get better. All right. And in the process of applying, you continue to learn as well. Okay. But what you will discover is now as you apply, you understand the dynamics and you make less mistakes. Okay. And now we are not talking about specific time frame. What we are doing is that you will go through that phase. And when you are really good at doing what you're doing in terms of application, and because you're still learning, you actually grow. Okay, so this phrase, when you're growing, you actually find that a lot of things are happening because the decision you make, you're very sharp. Okay, you take faster time to make decision, your quality and all that. So you can end up to become a high flyer if you go into that phase because you are applying, but because your application is sharp and good, okay, and you will grow. And that's where good companies will start to recognize you. Okay, and if you happen to have that relatively young, especially let's say in your 30s and your 40s, okay, in the early 40s, okay, that's what we call really good for you in your career. And once you achieve this growth phase, that this growth will also contribute to your experience. And now you have knowledge, you have experience, you have gone through a lot of stuff, and now you start thinking about who else can I help? Yes, a lot of things still happening for you, but now you got to start, but also at the same time, while you are giving, you can also continue to give even very early in your career. But because you know less, you give less. And what you do is that the part that after you apply, you grow and you have a lot to give. And that's where you give not only to the people below you, but you actually give to everybody, to your peers, even sometimes to bosses. All right, and you find that's where there's a certain set of completeness if you go through that. But understand the learning, the applying, the growing, and then the giving.
Because the capacity has to be that big before you can actually give. I do have one last question. And this is coming from a guy who has worked in corporate for 10 years. And I see this in a lot of my senior colleagues, my ex-senior colleagues. They have this belief that you do well in your career, work hard, keep your head down, like what you guys have alluded. By right, the financial stability should take care of itself. What do you say to that?
I talk about this. In fact, this happens very often when I do workshop. Okay, and even senior people, they struggle in their career. They talk the challenges they have at work with their bosses as well. And I think you may help. Can I repeat that whole story about the?
Please. Yeah. I think it's a very good story for.
Well, I say, okay, tell me, what time you get to work in the morning? You say it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I say, okay. And what time you reach home from work? I say, okay, 7 o'clock in the evening. I say, okay, 12 hours, the door to door. I say, okay, now you work 12 hours. So imagine you are a battery. All right. So when you leave work, when you leave work at time, what's your percentage in your battery?
100%.
100%. When you reach office?
Probably still 100, maybe 90.
90%. Okay. Somewhere in your journey from your home to your office, you lost 10%. What happened?
Yeah. Traffic.
Okay. Frustration, all the jams and all. Okay. I say, fine. All right. I say, okay. Now, 8 hours in the office. When you reach home, what's the percentage in the battery?
You'll be lucky, probably 20%.
Yep, 20%, 10%, 5%, depending on what transpired at work.
Yeah.
And I get that all the time, almost from everyone, most of the time, okay? So then I asked, okay, so today is going to be different. I told them, I said, okay, here's what's going to happen today. You're going to reach home about 7 o'clock, and then you're going to have dinner, nice dinner, and then you're going to take a shower, and you take up your papers, you're going to read about 9 o'clock in the evening, and you put on the TV, and then you hear a knock on the door. And then you open the door, and then this person wearing a very nice suit, a tie, and carrying a briefcase, and ask for your name. Are you so and so? I say, yeah. Okay. Then he introduced himself and say, I'm so and so. I'm a lawyer. I represent this person. Do you know this person? You say, don't know. I say, okay. Well, I'm here to talk about an important legal matter. And then you make the assessment. I think that this guy looks genuine. You let the person come in. You sit in your living room. And say, okay, now this so and so, you don't know him, but he knows you. Okay, and this person here, is a relative on your mother or father's side.
Okay.
And he said that, and he passed away recently. He has no known relative, but he had left a will.
Okay.
In the will, he named you. Okay, and what I want to do is I'm here to execute the will. And if you go through this set of legal papers, once you agree with everything, you sign, I will transfer all the things he left in the will. And then you look at it and saw the amount is 100 million.
Okay.
Okay, so you look at it, you kind of have a sense, not very sure whether it's true, but you look through everything, looks legitimate, and then you sign. The moment you sign, you make a call, and then next moment you check your phone, you see 100 million is in your bank.
Wow. Okay.
All right, so that evening, over, he went off. Next day, you wake up morning, how many percent your bank, your power bank?
200%, I guess.
Okay. Let's, for argument's sake, it's 100%. When you reach office, how many percent?
Still 100%.
100%. And you reach home, 100%?
Still 100%.
100%. Okay. So now the question is this, okay? In this whole story, nothing has changed. Right? You still go back to the same office, same work, same all the kind of things that happen in the office. And now you're telling me just because I introduced one new element in this story and that your power bank remains 100% throughout the entire day. Okay. So where's the problem now?
Your own financials, your own finances.
So which means that the only story has changed is your bank account. Now your bank account has 100 million. So therefore, all the problems that you've been telling me about is not a real problem. So the real problem is your bank account. So if it's your bank account, then whose responsibility is that?
Your own.
Your own. Okay, so now here is where I share with people about the company. No company in the world is designed to serve you, to serve your bank account. And every CEO, and I will have a problem with the CEO, if they design something to suit your bank account, because the CEO's responsibility is to make sure that it's a company's bank account that they need to worry about. Okay, to make sure that every job is paid according to the value of the job, not according to you.
Correct.
Okay, it doesn't matter who does the job, but it's the value of the job. So if you think you deserve more, are you able to add more value to the job? Okay, or find something that gives you extra value to the job that the company can afford to pay you for. But if not, that's the value of the job you're paid. So where there is a mismatch or expectation for individuals is that they expect companies to look after them. That their lifestyle, when they change, that the company must automatically compensate them for the change in their lifestyle. So if, example, somebody get married, okay, or you got more expenses, get a baby, more expensive, get a house, get a car, more expensive. You mean a company is supposed to keep track of all that and make recognition and pay you more? Don't. Okay, so how does individuals therefore help themselves? Okay, is to make sure that you understand all these things and you take charge. And you need to do what you need to do to protect yourself. The company is there to only can do so much for you. Okay, the rest is up to you.
Jonathan, you heard that. You're not getting a pay raise next year, okay, Jonathan? Just kidding.
Then he's gonna negotiate. He's gonna go to some other company and show us. Can you
match this?
Jonathan has only one thing to do, very simple. Only. He just has to make sure he's a flight risk.
Exactly. But in a funny way, we want to make him a flight risk.
We want to make
it. So I mean, look, before we look, it's almost amazing. But how do people?
Where do people
get this book? Is it on Amazon or wherever can people get it?
Okay, the hard copy, they are available at all the major bookstores in Malaysia today. Okay. In MPH, in Popular, in Kinokuniya, in Borders, and in other smaller bookshop as well. So my publisher and the book distributor has doing a pretty good job. It's already there. And then they also have it online as well. You can order through their website. I'm going to give you the link.
We'll put it in the description.
Cunning Publication is our sole book distributor. And they also have a link to sell it on Shopee as well.
I see.
So I will give you all the link. And then Saqib and I, we are working on an ebook model. Okay. I think it's coming out very soon.
Hopefully next week.
Will it be on Kindle?
Nice. It will be on.
I think so. I
think it's on all major online bookstore as well.
Saqib, I need your autograph.
A digital one. You can send one.
He's coming.
Oh, okay.
So I've got the Meng Chai's one. MJ's got his Meng Chai's too.
Okay, I will check and see that there are some copies that Saqib has signed before he left.
Oh, yeah. My bad. Saqib has to say.
Yes, correct.
There you go.
Saqib, you've done it.
Yours-
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
We did our due diligence.
Oh,
All right, man. Saqib
Yeah.
and Meng Chai, thank you so much for being on this podcast. Actually, this was a very anticipated one by both of us because we know the value is guaranteed, right? When
Yeah.
you guys come on the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
And yeah, man. Like, do you guys want to be found? If people want to find you
Yeah,
individually,
how do people find you?
people?
I know he wants retirement, so I don't know
Yeah.
whether it's
I think we can give the link to our. We have a career design Facebook page
Exactly.
where they could get in touch with us.
Great.
Yeah.
we have a
Great.
Facebook page on that, and then later we maybe want to develop an Instagram kind of a link as well.
Yeah.
So we have my daughter has helped me
Nice.
assist with
But
that.
the one of the twins or the youngest one?
Okay, Jonathan's friend.
Okay. All right, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well-
both. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, Saqib.
Saqib, you have
No,
anything
no.
last words?
I just want to thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
My pleasure's ours.
Pleasure's ours.
ours.
Six in the morning in Dallas right now.
Yeah.
So I know this is the first. By the way, Saqib, it's the first because it's the first time that we've recorded a podcast with the clock in the background. So
Yeah.
it's
There
a
you
bit
go.
rare. Yeah. So it's like pretty conscious. Even if I don't want to see it, it's seeing on my screen. So
Yeah.
thank you both of you so much.
The good
Yeah.
news is this, Saqib, when you are in town, I'm gonna arrange a get together with,
Yeah.
For sure,
our two friends here.
Awesome.
Yeah, I want to visit Urban Hijau, man. I mean, it sounds so interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us more about it.
Yeah,
when-
it's on every Sunday. We have a market, so you should stop by in the morning
Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
in TTDI.
Yeah.
Oh, TDI. Oh, so yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you guys for coming, and for those who are listening, look, it's been a fantastic podcast, and more of this will be coming your way.
Right.
And see you in the next podcast. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Good night.
you.